it's me, Miss Cooney. So today we're going to be doing some more art. So let's get ready for art with Miss Cooney. So last week we looked at Georgia's life in New Mexico and her creating her landscapes of the Pedernal Mountain, and you guys recreated some of those, and oh my goodness, yet again you were amazing. We saw some lovely colours, playing around with different shapes of the mountain. Amazing work, really impressed year 3. So this week we're going to continue to look at Georgia O'Keeffe landscapes, but in a slightly different way, at just one aspect of them. So last week, if you did some research, I'm sure you would have seen that actually in a lot of her landscapes of New Mexico, as well as the Pedernal Mountain, she included bones and skulls, and that's because every day Georgia would go for a walk in the desert and she would find these bleached bones and skulls, and they'd been bleached by the sun, which means they were really pure white. And this was an amazing contrast for Georgia, the pure white and the amazing colours of New Mexico. So she collected them and included them in her artwork. So your task today is to draw one of the skulls that Georgia found on one of her walks in New Mexico. So I've included 3 examples for you in your resource pack, and hopefully that will give you some inspiration. Now, I know before that I said that the skulls were often bleached white, but this is another chance for you to play around with colour, okay? You don't have to have a white skull. Let's see what colours and combinations we can come up with. In a minute, I'm going to play you a sped up version of me creating my take on one of the skulls that Georgia found in the desert, and then it will be over to you. So I started off by drawing the basic skull shape. So I almost thought it looked a bit like an upside down carrot. So it was thicker at the top and then got thinner at the bottom. Then I started to draw out where I wanted my antlers to be. So I drew them coming from the top and out. Then, because I'd done just a basic smooth outline of the skull, I wanted to go back in and add some of those jaggedy edges because the skull isn't perfectly smooth. So I started to add those jaggedy edges in and rub out any of my smoother lines that I'd done. So once I had done my outline of the skull and got rid of all my smooth lines, I then started to add detail to my face. So the eyes, cracks, anything that would really make the skull stand out. I started with my antlers and I gave them like a highlight, so a bright yellow all around the edge of my antlers. I then went in and coloured all of the tips of my antlers in a dark brown, so you have that darker brown and that highlight of yellow to give that lovely starting contrast. Once I finished outlining my antlers, I then outlined the actual skull in my brown as well, really focusing on where I wanted those lines and shapes to be bold. Once I was happy with the outline of my skull, I then looked at the detail on the face of the skull. So I coloured in the eyes in a darker blue and looked at some of the cracks and coloured them in black to make them stand out. Finally, I went around with my black pencil and made sure that any bits I wanted to really stand out were coloured in really nice and dark. So here is my final piece, and as you can see, I really tried to shade and add texture and make sure that there's lots of detail in my skull, so it's not just a white skull on a white piece of paper. I also added just a little flower because Georgia O'Keeffe loved flowers and I love flowers too, so I added one there, and you can too if you want to. I cannot wait to see your work year 3. Remember, use lots of colour and play around with it. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? And I cannot wait to see what you produce and what colours you decide to use. Have a good week.